Ukraine back down, the war cannot survive without the United States, Zelensky has given up. Ukrainian forces must cede in addition territory to Russia if U.S. Army aid does not arrive soon, President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned, in his contemporary attraction to Congress to bypass a multi-billion greenback package. President Joe Biden's management is suffering to push a $95 billion international aid package deal, which includes $60 billion for Ukraine, through the residence of representatives more than a month because it changed into surpassed inside the Senate. Zelensky warned that the lack of useful resource was urgent and could endanger Ukraine's principal towns. If there's no U.S. assist, it method that we haven't any air protection, no Patriot missiles, no jammers for electronic warfare, number 155mm artillery rounds, he informed the Washington put up at some stage in a latest interview published Friday. It way we can move lower back, retreat, step by step, in small steps. He stated Kyiv might be pressured to do less and prioritize resources, and the cut ought to have outcomes. If you need 8,000 rounds an afternoon to guard the front line, but you most effective have, as an instance, 2,000 rounds, you have to do much less, he defined, pronouncing that the answer may additionally entail shortening the front line. If it breaks, the Russians should go to the large cities. An awful lot of Ukraine's east has been below Russian Navy control due to the fact that Moscow released its invasion extra than 2 years in the past. Closing month, Kyiv introduced its withdrawal from Avdiivka, one of the most fiercely contested cities on its Japtha front in latest months. While its strategic significance is restrained, the lack of Avdiivka, taken together with Moscow's capture of the metropolis of Bakhmut closing 12 months, shows how the warfare appears to have grew to become in Russia's prefer. Greater these days, Russia has stepped up assaults on Ukraine's border villages as Russian President Vladimir Putin raised the prospect of making a sanitary quarter inner Ukraine to protect his USA's southwestern regions. This got here after Putin secured an unsurprising victory in an extensively discredited presidential election earlier this month. Uncertainties linger over the United States' useful resource invoice, which may not appear to be the $95 billion package deal the Senate exceeded, with Republicans keener to look a few type of mortgage application, while Democrats might also have reservations on any extra conditions. The Republican may also go with the flow for the bundle to bypass. Residence Speaker Mike Johnson has signaled an openness to a separate bipartisan plan in the residence, and informed GOP lawmakers that he may additionally timetable floor time after Easter recess. Meanwhile, Zelensky stated Ukraine is scrambling to locate some manner not to retreat. The goal for Ukraine to date is to hold the frontline scenario solid, in keeping with Zelensky. If the front remains stable, Ukraine can arm and train new brigades in the rear to conduct a new counteroffensive later this 12 months, he said. The president said Ukraine's options rely upon what Congress comes to a decision. We won't waste time anymore. Ukraine can't be a political issue among the events, he said. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated in an interview posted on Friday that if Ukraine does now not get promised U.S. Army useful resource blocked by means of disputes in Congress, its forces will need to retreat in small steps. If there may be no U.S. help, it means that we have no air defense, no Patriot missiles, no jammers for electronic warfare, no 155mm artillery rounds, Zelensky instructed the Washington Post. It way we are able to retreat step by step, in small steps, he said. We're looking for some way not to retreat. Shortages of munitions, he stated, you have to do with much less. How? Of course, to head lower back. Make the front line shorter. If it breaks, the Russians could visit the massive cities. Democratic President Joe Biden has entreated the Republican-controlled U.S. residents of representatives to suggest the military and monetary aid package, but residents' Speaker Mike Johnson has held up the matter for months, bringing up home priorities. Zelensky instructed Johnson in a smartphone communication on Thursday that approval of the bundle became critical. Russian forces captured the Japanese town of Avdiivka closing month, and feature made small gains in view that, but the front lines have changed little in months. In his interview, the Ukrainian president said Ukraine changed into making up for shortages of missiles with home-produced weaponry and air defense structures. However, it isn't always sufficient. More than 2 years into the warfare, Russia has intensified assaults on electricity and other infrastructure in current weeks. Ukrainian troops have been unable to boost, and Zelensky said Kyiv intended to pursue attacks on objectives in Russia, along with oil refineries. He said Washington's reaction to the wave of Ukrainian assaults was not fine, however Kyiv was the use of its own drones. We used our drones. Nobody can say to us, "You mate," he told the newspaper. If there may be no air defense to defend our energy machine and Russians assault it, my question is, why can't we answer them? He said. Their society has to learn how to stay without petrol, without diesel, without energy. Whilst Russia will stop these steps, we can forestall. Meanwhile, large Russian missile and drone assaults hit thermal and hydro-strength plants in Imperative and western Ukraine in a single day, officers stated on Friday. Kaniv hydropower plant turned into among the objectives alongside Dniester plant, which is positioned at the Dniester River, flowing via neighboring Moldova, Volodymyr Zelensky said. The terrorist state of Russia wishes to repeat the ecological disaster inside the Kherson area, following Russia's destruction of the Kakhovka HPP, blown up by using Russian forces remaining year. This time, not handiest Ukraine, however, also Moldova are at hazard, he said on X, formerly Twitter. Final week, Russia additionally hit Ukraine's largest dam, the Dnipro HES, within the southern Zaporizhia region, 8 instances during a huge overnight assault. A senior reliable at the Centrenergo generating business enterprise suggested that the 10-unit Zmivska thermal plant, in northeastern Kharkiv vicinity, a place difficulty to many Russian assaults, had been destroyed in a large wave of strikes on March 22. The effects were adverse. The station is destroyed, Andriy Hota, chairman of the agency's supervisory board, advised Interfax Ukraine news agency. There have been many direct hits. The whole lot we repaired in training for the iciness was destroyed. The wave of attacks on March 22 turned into described through Kyiv officials as the most severe since the February 2022 invasion. Local officials stated Russian forces had also attacked infrastructure overnight into Friday within the Kamiansk district, near the town of Dnipro. At the least one character was wounded. Ukrainian Electricity Minister German Galishchenko said power centers inside the regions of Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava and Cherkasy had similarly come beneath assault. Electricity technology facilities had been targeted via drones and missiles, Galishchenko said on FB. High Minister Denis Shmyhal said power centers in general of 6 regions had been broken.